Rotarian. He has not been a member for a few years due to his health, but Carl Metcalf. Carl was a past president, was so involved in Rotary. His wife, Marion, is very involved with Second Chance Pet Rescue. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. I know Marion will appreciate it. It's going to be a difficult time for her, I am sure. Next up, please help me welcome our Sergeant of Arms, Miss Judy McCary.
See, if you are Sergeant of Arms, you can get more than one clap if you do a good job. So all you people just get one clap, keep that in mind. Okay, as you guys know, I send out the newsletter, and it's fake news sometimes. So in there was a link to the new warning system for the Grove area, and there was a link in there, and I have since discovered that it did not work very well. So on your table, you're going to see this QR code. You guys see that? You can take that home, take a picture of it, with your phone, scan it with your phone, and you can go in and sign up. And this is so you can get weather alerts for your area, any kind of emergency warnings that go out. So be sure to sign up for it. It's a really great system. It replaces our old red code warning system. Charlie.
I followed it and signed up, but Grove, Oklahoma was not listed as one of the territories you can get alerted.
Put in the zip code.
Okay.
Put in the zip code and it works. If you try to find Grove, it goes to like Grove, Ohio or something like that. If you have any further questions, you can ask our speaker. He might be able to help you with that. Okay. Sergeant of Arms today, so we're raising money for our scholarship fund, so everybody get out $1 and put it in the bucket. Visitors, guests, you're exempt. Okay, we're going to do Guess the Rotarian. I love doing this. So you guys got to try to figure out who this Rotarian is. I'm going to give you some clues. They're a master gardener. They've traveled to state capitals of 41 states. Their first boat ride and fishing adventure on Grand Lake was at the tender age of 5. Any ideas? I'm going to give you an idea. They have white hair. It's not Louise. It's of the male's persuasion.
Jim Corbett.
Not Jim Corbridge. He still has a little gray in his hair, by the way. This guy has a blue shirt on today. Look around. No, not David Sloan.
It's not me.
Would this Rotarian please stand up?
That's a good one.
Ken Spraggins. Okay, number 2. This person dressed up as a princess for kids' birthday parties. It's not Ken Spraggins. They had a tooth that came in backwards. I know you're going to have everybody at your table open their mouth. They might have had too much to drink and were abandoned in California when they were 21. They didn't live in California, by the way. And they can lick their elbow. Okay, everybody at your table, try to lick your elbow. We're going to see. Okay, I knew everybody was going to do that. Anybody have any idea?
Him. Eric Peterson.
Male or female?
They're fairly young. You have to be young to be able to lick your elbow, right? I know everybody tried it. Nobody could do it. No, they're the female persuasion.
Sarah.
Sarah Wilhelm, will you please stand up? Should we make her lick her elbow? Should we make her do it? Sarah, let's see you do it. All right. Just in case you ever need to do that. Okay, our third one.
That's a first.
This person was a high school drum major at Sapulpa High School. Had a foreign exchange brother from Finland. They were hit by a car and lived. They only broke their leg. They have 15 immediate family members who graduated from OSU. Have you seen anybody walk with a limp besides Everett today? Okay, it's a man. They don't have gray hair. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Charlie.
Okay, will this Rotarian please stand up? Greg Stalker in the back. sold it at a garage sale. Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you so much, Judy McHenry. Our Rotarian of the day is Mark Polson. I don't believe I've seen Mark. Is Mark here? No? Well, thank you, Mark. We're glad you're a member of Rotary if you happen to be watching online. We do not have any students of the month, but we would like to thank Mulligan's for catering a delicious meal today. Also want to recognize our guests that are here. If you would give us a wave when I call out your name. We have Dwayne Litsky here with Martha Thompson. Welcome, Dwayne. We have the lovely Lisa Dodson with her happily retired husband, Pat. We have a brand new member turned in her application today, so please welcome our newest Rotarian, Leslie Sexton. Sponsored by Susanna. Everett has a guest, Melanie, and I cannot read your last name. Melanie, are you here? Maybe Melanie? Yeah?
She's out of the car.
She's at the car. Well, we'll hope to say hi to her when she comes in. We're glad you guys are here. And we also have Jared Stice, guest of Joel McCorkle. Here is Jared McCorkle. All right, if you have announcements, please wake your way up to the front. I do have an announcement, which is I am helping organize, if you remember, I've done this for a couple of years, we do a welcome back event for Grove Public School teachers, where they receive door prizes, gifts, and we're always collecting, trying to get more and more door prizes. Our goal is so that every teacher wins a door prize. And last year, some of you suggested I make the announcement. So if you would like to donate a door prize, I say cash is king, everybody loves that. I am happy to take that money and we will put that in the drawing for our teachers. Any amount is welcome. Carol LaRue, I know you have an announcement.
So the information's on your table. We're having the holding Creative Alliance is sponsoring the second annual World Peace Gathering at Lindenwood Gardens on September 20th. It's from 4 to 5:30 p.m. It's open to all faith, beliefs, ages, and basically it includes music, poetry, meditations for peace, and acknowledging peace in every single country in the world.
Thank you so much. I would also like to welcome, we have not a new Rotarian, but new to us Rotarian who's transferring in, only I'm embarrassed to say, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this last name right. So Rod, please stand up and tell me, is it Cree? No. How to say it? Cry. Rod Cry. K-R-E-I-E. Rod, we're so excited you transferred in to join our club, so please be sure you get by and give Rod a handshake and welcome. Also, there is a card going around for Sue Montgomery, our Rotarian, lost her husband after a courageous battle, so please take a moment to sign that card, and thank you for getting that together for us, Kathy. Next up, it's time to introduce our speaker at 12:23. It's my pleasure to introduce my friend and the Mayor of Grove, Ed Trumbull. A few quick stats about Ed. I know Ed because he's been a teacher in Grove for 29 years, and he started my kids on, well, at least one of them, on their passion for science fair. The other two, maybe not so much of a passion, but we got through those science fair years, didn't we, Ed? With only a few tears. Ed is a beloved teacher at Grove. He has received every grant he's ever applied for through the Grove Education Foundation for Excellence. Multiple times has been nominated for the Shining Star. He's an amazing husband and father. He's been on the city council since 2010 and been our mayor since 2017. He's just such a fearless and avid supporter of our community and works so hard. So please help me welcome Ed Trumbull.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, I think. I don't know if I should be offended or not by the way that she introduced me as like, oh, well, we'll start early to make sure. And I don't know, I've been thinking to myself too, it's a good thing that clock's there because I do sometimes go off on tangents. And actually, Christy's not the only person in this room to ever have kind of accused me of being able to talk a long time. One time Connie was, we were discussing the Christmas program, and she was just like, oh, well, it might be 5 minutes, it might be 15, but I know you can handle it. So I was kind of like, what are you saying? So anyhow, I do appreciate that. I will correct you a little bit, though. It's not 29 years. This will be my 39th year as being a teacher. But with that said, one of the reasons why I still teach really is because of being in Grove, and also because of the gentleman sitting over here and the effect that he's had on my career over the years. So I do appreciate that. Some of you know I did go to Grove or to Joplin for 1 year, and obviously it didn't have the impact on me that Grove did. So I was there for just a year, and thank goodness Mr. Dodson brought me back with open arms. So I do appreciate that because I do love this community, and it is where I feel like I do belong. And you guys are part of that. I mean, you have a big impact on that, and I do appreciate that. And I do want to thank the Rotarians, and I know that all of you are involved in so many different things, but you have a huge impact on this community. And I do want to make sure that you know that I appreciate that, but also the community actually really does appreciate that. Some probably don't even realize just what the impact is that you have. So today, though, I do want to speak to you about a different variety of things in regards to the city. My slides are hopefully to try to keep you a little bit on track. And I do consider you a harder group to speak to because you know so much. You're involved people in the community. And so, I kind of had a hard time coming up with, okay, what exactly was I going to speak towards? So the first thing I did want to discuss was actually the Grove webpage. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring that up is we have recently changed from website designers or webpage designers. And so I do think that our new webpage, even though it's still cityofgroveok.gov, I think it's a more user-friendly and a better-looking webpage. I mean, there are some things that are very similar, but there are some things that are different. And so one of the things that you might notice if you haven't ever been to our website is now we do have the little tiny squares at the bottom, or this actually isn't really truly the bottom, but when you first open it up, that's what you're going to see. And that's going to lead you to a lot of information that you may or may not need, but I think that it will be beneficial for you guys to go. And if you ever have questions that you need answered, a lot of times it can be found right here on our webpage. So like I said, there is a lot of information. And one of the things that was in the paper just the other day was about agenda and minutes. And Berwin is in here somewhere, but Berwin had brought up the topic at one of the council meetings recently that our minutes were not on the webpage. And that was because basically it's a fairly new site. They're still working out some bugs, but since he made that comment and since that appeared in the paper, we do actually have those agenda minutes that are there. As Berman pointed out to me earlier, there may be still some issues with that. But my opinion is that it's great to be able to see the agenda, but if you don't know what actually happened in the meeting, what good are those agenda minutes or those agendas, and seeing them without the minutes. So now you have access to both. One of the things that you will note, though, is that the July 7th and I believe it's July 21st meetings do not have minutes yet. And part of that is because of the fact that the minutes have not been approved yet for the July 7th. We tabled those because something was left off at the end of them, And then, of course, we haven't had a city council meeting yet to approve the minutes of the July 21st meeting. But those are always there. Once you get to that side, if you click on, I actually think I've got a couple of these slides out of order because I was trying to get them in the right order for presenting on both, whether I needed to do it on a PDF or if I could do it on Google Slides, things like that. So I do believe I have a couple out of order, as I said. But if you click on the Wolf Creek Square and upcoming events, I think it also, its convention also is put a label on. But you're going to see things like the news, you're going to see an events calendar, and then you'll also see some tabs on the side that you can access different types of information. And I do believe that this is also a good site for leaping off, and this is where I got a little bit out of order, so I'll come back to that. But there is also another one. One of the squares basically says, report a problem. And so if you click on that, you basically will also come to this particular page, but it's got a lot of different tabs. And this is one that I wish that citizens would use more. Because one of the tabs is on the side, it says to report potholes or other issues. And what that does, it literally just takes you though to this particular page where you can fill out a form to report those. Whether it's a pothole, whether it's a code violation of some form, or just anything that you would like to alert the city to. And I think that a lot of times, and I won't really accuse this group, because I don't, you guys are doers. I do think that we have people that are the doers in life. They're the ones that, when they see a problem, they address it. They're not the ones that just go out and point out problems. And a lot of times on Facebook, though, you get those people that are just pointing out problems. But, if you need to have a problem addressed, Facebook isn't the place to start. Instead, call the city. Go to the city webpage. Report those problems. That's how to get things done. Not just making Facebook a gripe session. Let me see, I'll go ahead. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. So another part on here that I wanted to address, which is exactly what Judy was addressing here with the QR codes, is if you go to the resource tab on the city webpage, what you will find there is underneath public safety, there is the Everbridge tab or name. And that is the replacement for Code Red. So it is the county system, and I'll be quite honest with you, I am not that horribly familiar with it. But what I do know is that if you click on the Everbridge, it's going to take you to this webpage. And now this I've actually done myself, although I did it fairly recently, and we haven't had any huge storms or anything since then, so I couldn't really attest to the fact that whether I've been alerted or not. But basically, what you do is you click on where it says create an account. You put in your information. It's a pretty simple process. It does have you put your zip code in, and I do believe that that's going to be how they track which different alerts that you get. But obviously this is a topic that you guys have heard before, but what I would actually appreciate for you to do is to spread the word that this is out there and that this resource is available to the city or to the citizens of the city and also of our community and our surroundings. So I think it's a great tool, obviously, especially living in Oklahoma. So, the next one that to me is a big topic. Money. And because really from all the problems that get spoken about for any organization, and especially for government entities, a lot of it comes back to money. And money can solve a lot of problems. And one of the things that I want to make sure, and I frequently say this, is that I want to make sure that people know how is the city funded, because it has never ceased to surprise me how many people don't know how their cities are funded. And in the state of Oklahoma, we are the only state that is still this way. Municipalities are funded primarily by sales tax revenue. We do not receive any property tax whatsoever. And that surprises a lot of people. You know, the other sources of revenue that we get, really they're going to be not a great portion of our budget. They're going to usually be in the form of grants, you know, some other minor things. But the primary source of income is sales tax revenue. And so for those of you that are business owners that generate revenue, well, I greatly appreciate you. And, you know, also some of you too, that's one of the things that's on the webpage are, you know, ways for you to be helped out in some aspects. There's a link to the Department of Commerce. There's a link about information for our sales tax rebate program if you are a new business downtown and that type of stuff. So there's a lot of information on this website. But going back to sales tax and revenue, the only way in the state of Oklahoma that a city can receive property tax revenue is if you pass a general obligation bond. And that's something that's never happened in the city of Grove. Okay? So a couple of things that I want to point out, or I wanted to point out too, was the fact that, okay, how are your sales tax broken down in the city of Grove? And so as the chart says, 4.5% goes to the state of Oklahoma, 1.7% of your sales tax goes to Delaware County, and in just the past couple of years, our sales tax has gone from being at a rate of 3.4% up to 4%. And that was due to, you know, the election over the police and fire department and the new stations. And one of the good things about that particular increase in sales tax revenue is that it is tied specifically to a city ordinance that voters passed. And it says in that ordinance that this tax is only going to be there for the 15 years that it takes to pay off that particular, or you know, the amount of money that we borrowed for those projects. And unless the citizens of Grove in the future were to vote to keep that particular 0.6% sales tax, it's going to go away once the police and fire stations are paid off. And so that's something to keep in mind also. 3% of our sales tax goes to our capital fund, and 0.4% is basically for debt payments, GMSA, that type of thing. So one thing that's not on here that we actually do have in the city of Grove too, and I'm sure that you guys have heard, you know, you all are in the know, so I probably really don't even need to say it, but lodging tax. So as you know, years ago, we did, through a vote of people, pass a lodging tax, and that is to fund the things done by our Convention and Tourism Board. Just to kind of go through some of those, and starting with the lodging tax, this past fiscal year, that raised $181,000. The previous year to that, it raised over $200,000. And so those particular funds get to be used by the CTB to fund projects that they think will help bring people to Grove and help out tourism and help generate money in that aspect. Last year, our 0.6% sales tax raised 1.9, or a little bit over $1.9 million. So we're on a pretty good start in that particular area on keeping up with the money that we need to pay off the loans for those projects. The 0.4% last year, last fiscal year, a little over 1.3 million. Our 3% general or capital fund was almost 9 million. So we've done pretty well over the years to see that continue to increase, which is a good thing, because as so many people say, we have a lot of good stuff going on in Grove, Oklahoma, and a lot of that's because we're paying for it, and we are now in the position to where we think that we can continue to pay for this, and let's hope that it stays that way. So as long as consumers continue to spend, we should remain in good shape. But one of the things, obviously, that everybody in here knows about is the Wolf Creek Park and Exposition Center. And most of you are aware of the cost of that and that type of stuff, but I thought I'd go ahead and throw that out there. Obviously, we built that facility as an economic stimulator. It serves a lot of different purposes. What a lot of people don't know, though, is the way in which we did that. It was great that one of our local banks worked with us to make it to where we could afford that, because it was something we really truly needed. But it's a 40-year loan, which is really a lot longer than I like to be paying on things. But it allowed us to get something that we needed built. And as Christy can attest, because she called me when we sold the old one, and we both had concerns about what are we going to do to bridge that gap, and there really wasn't much of an answer. Now we've bridged that gap, and so hopefully it can be used in all the different ways that we need to use it. But that project was about $5.7 million. Our interest rate, by the way, I'll throw this out there. I don't normally throw out numbers like this because a lot of times I don't actually remember. But it was a 3.97% interest loan. And like I said, the way that was structured, it allowed us to be able to afford that particular project instead of having to wait and wait and wait. Originally, if things had not changed on that, we would still be waiting. And Crossland Construction, Ivan Crossland, has a lot of credit he needs to be given, because he was the one that suggested we change up construction methods on the building, and that's what made the building affordable. We went from being probably a little over $11 million for that project down to the $5.7 million. And that, by the way, the payments for that will be coming out of that capital fund, so that 3% sales tax revenue that I was speaking of. If you haven't driven by the police and fire department lately, please do. I think that this is something that we should all be very prideful of. To me, it seemed like the police department was ahead of the fire department as far as construction goes. But now that they've started putting bricks up and they've got the doors in, it's really looking like it's coming together. And I don't know if it's just a mental thing, if it's a visual thing, but since they've got the bricks up, to me, it looks like the fire department is going to be bigger than what it looked like when it was just the sticks. So I think they're both going to be fantastic facilities that we should all be proud of. I also think that it speaks a lot to our community that they were willing to support the $17.5 million to build these. As I mentioned, that's a 15-year obligation for us, and that 0.6% is what's going to fund that. Another thing that gets spoken about quite a bit is the bike trails. And if you haven't driven down Harbor and looked lately, you might want to, because you can actually see some progress starting to take place. We've been talking about it for a couple of years now, and thank goodness we're finally starting to see something take place. So you can actually see dirt being moved, you can see rock being put in. There are actually some change orders that have been put in. So the beginnings of our bike trail park, here they are, and it's really pretty exciting to see. The beginning trail is the perimeter trail. That is scheduled to be completed in June of 2027, and hopefully all of you will utilize that. This is an ongoing project, obviously. This perimeter phase was mostly funded by a TSET grant, and the reason why we had a groundbreaking and then it seemed like nothing at all was happening was because the way that the TSET grants were, we had to have those funds broken into 2 fiscal years. And so we kind of had to wait before we could get started on the things that you could actually see. Obviously some of that money helped to pay for design. In regards to the bike park, which will be, a project that continues to go on until we can continue to get funding for the different stages. And this was actually something that Berwin pointed out in our last meeting that was not on the minutes, that should have been on the minutes in light of the table, is that we have recently closed on property at the corner of 10th and Center Street. And that is to allow us to have, eventually, in the history of the park moving forward, is a better entrance into where the park entrance will be. Currently there is a house there, so obviously eventually that home will be taken down. And at this point we don't really have true, set in dirt, or set in stone what it is we're going to actually do at that property, but it gives us the ability, if we need extra parking, we can make that into a parking lot, things like that. But we just wanted to make sure that we had access to that property. That opportunity arose, and so we figured, hey, we better get it while we can, because it may not be available in the future. Let's see here. The next thing that I always hate to bring up, but has been a huge source of, negativity, I guess, in some aspects, but is with water and sewer. And one of the things about cities and any government entity, some of the things that we never think about are the things that we don't see because they're underground. And at the same time, though, even though we don't see them and very often we don't think about them, they're amazingly important. So if you want to see the continued growth of Oklahoma, one of the things that you have to see is the continuation of our ability to provide water. And so our cost increases that we had to pass recently, part of that is to help us, meet those goals and to be able to provide water to our community for years to come. One of the things that we had been doing, we had been supplementing some of the cost of producing water and taking care of sewer. And that's one of the things we're hoping to get away with, or get away from, I should say, with the increased rates. So with that said, I know I'm kind of watching the clock here, and I know I'm kind of running a little bit long, but this is pretty close to where I figured I'd get. One of the things to also keep in mind is that this is not something that is unique to Grove, Oklahoma, as far as having to increase costs. The cost of putting in water lines has gone up tremendously. A rough estimate for installing or putting in a new 12-inch water main, a mile, is about $1 million. So obviously water is not cheap. One of the good things that we have to look for is we are one of those rare communities that we don't actually have to pay for our water, raw water. It comes out of the lake and then we treat it. But with that said, because like I said, I know I'm starting to run a little bit long. One of the things that we have been doing over the years is we have been working on fixing leaks, and that's incredibly important, especially in this part of the country where we grow rocks. A lot of communities have 60% water loss, sometimes over 60% water loss, because of aging, infrastructure, but also because of those rocks. And sometimes it was because of the way, the lines were placed. They weren't done in the best of ways in the past. And that's not necessarily blaming those crews. It's what they had the ability to do at that particular time. But we've done all kinds of things to find water losses, whether it be using satellite images, actually even having dogs that were supposed to be able to sniff out the water leaks. But we've actually gone from being one of those communities that was losing over 60% of our fresh water, our treated water, to now we're down to around 50%. And if we can keep that going down, that will help us in not having to, add to our water treatment center, which will be amazingly expensive should we have to build. With that said, though, I know that I've really extended past my time here that I was supposed to have. I guess now I should open it up to questions. Yes, sir.
What are the proposed move-in dates for the police and fire departments?
Okay, the proposed move-in dates to police and fire. September. Now, as you know, with anything that's going to involve construction projects like this, that may not come to be, but that's the plan at this point. Yes, sir.
I think a major pain point for this town, especially on weekends, is the entrance to Leisure Road in that area. I know the excuses have been that it's going to be very expensive to widen that to 4 lanes. And I would say that I'd love to know if there's any movement on that, and I strongly encourage you to work with the state to make that happen.
Well, as you said, the state. And that's going to be, that would be dependent on ODOT. Because as you know, that entrance to our city, that's state highway. Our main street is state highway. The road through our downtown is state highway. So we're pretty dependent on ODOT and what they're willing to do. One of the things that I would hope that we could do in the future, or maybe convince them to do, is not necessarily widen it to 4 lanes, which would actually be the best thing that we could possibly do. But something that would be less expensive is that if we could widen just enough to help to access that turn point. And if we could bring the turn lane back further to allow people to get into that turn lane and make it more of a congestion buster. So yes, you're right. I mean, it's a big problem. It always has. Well, I shouldn't say it always has been, but since I've lived here, it has been. We'll continue to keep plugging away to try to get a project here to do that.
Okay, this might be a naive question, but I understand the increases in the water. That makes sense. You need that to improve things. But why is it if you're out of city limits, it went up significantly more than if you're in city limits?
Well, because you're not a citizen of growth. And I know that sounds bad, but it is one of those things, because when you do live out of the city limits, there's further to go. And so maintenance and installation of those types of things, there's more money into that. So I will say, though, have you ever been on a rural water district plan? So with most of those, at least the one that I belong to, because I have property in Adair County, when I first became a member, it was $35 a month, no matter whether I used water or not. And that was simply because they had to maintain those rural infrastructures. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, is that we're maintaining what we would consider rural water districts, or rural, areas outside of the city limits. And with that said, my original fee for belonging to a water district was $35. That went up to $45, now it's $50. And then also my rates for water too have gone up. So whether I use water or not, and in a lot of months I don't, especially in the winter, I'm still paying $50 a month just to have that access to fresh water. And sometimes too, I don't want to belittle, the fact that we have increased the amount that you pay for water. But think about its value. And think about, where would we be without having a water system? So we do have to pay for it. And I do hate the fact, I say that, and I'm a little bit torn both ways, but it is kind of tough sometimes to think about, well, why are we charging these people more just because they live across the line, the border line, and why don't we make it the same? But I think that to keep our system up and running to the quality that we need it to be, I think that we have to do that. And also, a lot of the areas that a lot of the water that we supply isn't just to individuals too. It's going to be to some businesses that are outside of city limits and things like that. So, I know it's not a good thing, and that may not be a good answer, but I think that we've gotten so used to paying so little for water that it's tough to pay when we pay more. Like I said, I'm paying, and I know that you don't really care about this, but I'm paying about $700 a year for water that I don't necessarily use much of. But I think it's so important to have water that I feel safe to drink, to have my grandchildren bathe in, and utilize for cooking. I think that it was important enough for me to get onto a rural water district.
All right, we have one more question.
Okay, yes, sir.
All right, real quick, what are the top 2 or 3 new economic things from growth?
And you have 1 minute.
Well,
Make it
okay,
quick.
so real quick, sometimes we can't say. So there are some things that are in discussion, but they can't be made public yet. With that that said, I just have to back my tongue.
But you do have people, you are in talks with several different businesses, I would assume.
We are.
How many if you had to guess?
Two that, well, one that looks incredibly positive, and I think that it's going to be a done deal. Another one, yeah, but you know, with that said, we've had a lot of things that have seemed like they were going to go 100% positive that then turned around and just fell through for
Okay,
whatever reason.
on your first one that you said you feel pretty positive, could you give a ballpark if that went through of how many jobs it might bring? That doesn't tell us much.
It does something.
More than
It's like,
10.
hey, no, what?
Less than 100.
I'm not going to say.
So 50 is just what I'm feeling.
Okay,
Right?
I'll tell you what, I'll give you a range. It's between 1 and 10,000.
Let's check 10,000 for this one. And thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time today and for me putting you on the spot. Thank you. Well, definitely do not want to miss, and you will love next week's program. It's Sutton Aviation and the Research Center. Aviation, that's not it. It's called Aviary, the Sutton Aviary Center. It's not planes, it's eagle. It's all bald eagles. You don't want to miss it. Also, you know, I didn't mention Clayton is out at training for his new position, so he's going to be gone this week and next week, so you will be stuck with me next week as well. Today we're going to pick up everything, so thank you to the teams who always do that for us. And if you will stand, we will adjourn with the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair?
Will be beneficial to all concerned.